I'm Bruce, and today we are with Mr. Jonathan Quek from Grove, Malaysia, and our special VIP guest is Datuk Seri Garry Chua, the president of MRCA. So, Jonathan, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. That's a new mic I see. So, yeah, over to you, Jonathan.
All right, thanks so much, Dato Bruce. First of all, Growth Malaysia is an organization built to help SMEs to not only survive, but to thrive in the digital age. And currently, we are going through what we call the coronavirus crisis. And while most SMEs are panicking, we believe that there are very few SMEs out there who are doing pretty well. So today, we are going to invite Datuk Seri Garry Chua to discuss with us what SMEs can do and what governments can possibly do as well to help SMEs. So, Dato Seri Garry, tell us a bit about yourself and your organization, SME Malaysia.
Okay, I've started off Roto Group in 1994 on building services with a JV company with the American technology. And we do a lot of refurbishment and facade repair and maintenance. So currently we're doing about 60% of the high-rise building in the city, in Klang Valley. And during the downturn 1998, we started our chain of restaurant called Chakri Palace and Sun Hotel and Raintree as well. Today, we actually looking at the SME being a very important component of all the business in Malaysia. Actually, it consists of 98.5% of business in Malaysia based on the SME. And today, of course, we are facing a very hard time because of, in view of, this is something out of the ordinary. Because 1998, you have the Asian crisis, financial crisis, and 2008 was a world global financial crisis. And this time, it's not only global, it's something more than that. There's MCO, lock-in, and all these new elements that are coming into play, where movements are restricted. So business are literally coming to a halt. So when there's no income, there's no liquidity. You can't pay salaries, you can't pay rentals, you can't pay a host of other things. So it's a very big challenge at the moment.
Well, as you mentioned, right now we are in what we call a global pandemic. It's not only an economic crisis, but also a health crisis. And as SMEs are, like what you mentioned, SMEs are the backbones of the country. What do you think is at stake right here?
You see, the main thing now to survive is very important. There are a few elements here. The most critical is paying salaries. Earlier, the government announced that we have to pay our salaries to the staff. I think that is impossible. It's an impossible task. All companies were saying, because with zero income, how can you have the liquidity or the cash to pay the salaries? In UK, the government has come up to subsidize 80%, and in Thailand, even 50% with a ceiling of 400 USD to support the industries or the workers, and the economy. So Malaysia, actually, in the government side, we actually have approached and requested the government should bear at least 50%. Then the balance of the 50%, we can see how to negotiate and discuss with our staff and see how to mitigate this situation. And that's very critical. And for the government, they can use the HR resources funds, or they can use others, GLCs, or within the whatever authority they have to raise the funds to help the industry. Otherwise, everyone will just go down the gutter. And of course, very important thing, the next one is paying rent. To pay rent is another very big challenge, especially in the big malls. They're very high rental to pay because of the iconic locations they have. So this is another area, the rental can come from 50,000, 100, 200, 300,000 a month. So this is very big challenge to all the retailers as well. So this is one area, again, we need a lot of cushioning, So lately there's some announcement, some goodwill from started by Sunway, giving free rental during the MCO period. But this is not insufficient actually. We need another 6 months to cushion out. Even after the MCOs, business will not come back as normal. That one you can be assured. So we at least need another 50% cushion for the next 6 months. And this one actually can also assisted by not just the malls alone, to be fair to them. For example, TNB has been making excessive profits last year, $4 billion, being a public utility and public serving company owned partly by the government. It should be not just profit driven per se. So they have to come in, for example, give a big discount of 30% to all the malls and 20% to the public as well, the household. Because household, everyone, whether you like it or not, one after, directly and indirectly, they're all affected. So this is very important that the message have to go through that we need this kind of support. And of course, thirdly, is the banks. You know? The banks lately have announced the moratorium through our request to Bank Negara and the ministries. They're giving 6 months of moratorium to only the loans, term loans. But this is very insufficient because, you see, I believe at least 80% of the business in Malaysia are using trade lines like BA and LCs, you know, to tie over the cash flow for whatever business they do. And this is very important. It has to be included as well as also the insurance company. Otherwise, all the policies will lapse as well. You get what I mean? And this is very critical. And we have to include all this to be part of what you call that, the system to make it ongoing. And fourthly, the most critical also, we have to pay the statutory bodies, things like EPF, SST, you know, income tax. All these should also be deferred for at least the next 6 months, you know, and totally freeze it so that cash flow can be at least utilized in the most effective or most needed areas, you know, to keep the business and the retail afloat.
As a retail business owner yourself, can hear really a lot of personal experiences and all the challenges that a lot of retail businesses are going through. And I'm going to ask a very sensitive question here is, do you think the government has done enough at this point of time during this very difficult period of time for retail owners?
In fact, we have been engaging very actively with the government. We actually felt that, and in fact, told very clearly that the whatever measures taken is is probably can only kill a mini tsunami. But now we have a big tsunami coming, and this is one of things. Either you can deal with it, and that's it. Just like a town can be totally wiped out by this tsunami, so the whole economy, the whole country can collapse. So very drastic, bold, and firm decisions has to be made by the government to spearhead this. As I mentioned earlier, we need very strong leadership and clear direction, and to show the leadership that to the people that we will be together with you and to contain and elevate this situation so that things will go back to at least normal within the next 6 to 12 months. Another area, I believe the public and the business sector, as far as I've spoken to many of them, they don't care whether the country has money or no. You see, very important. Government have to find ways to raise the money. For example, they can use all the GLC or GIC's whatever reserve or even Petronas. And now the world is talking about a COVID bond, just like during after the post-World War II. They are using all these bonds to keep the country afloat and also to boost the economy in the fastest possible time, you see. And this is very important, you see. Otherwise, if the economy collapse, everyone will be out of job. Can you imagine, especially the B40, and the most concerned are the B40s and even the M40s. How are they going to survive? There'll be chaos, you know. Can you imagine?
Yep, I totally agree. We are right now in a situation where the tsunami has hit, and in this tsunami, is either people will be able to sink or they will swim. Very few will be able to surf. And we're in a situation where we have a new government who have just came in place. So I'm very curious, Datuk Seri Garry, what is MRCA's role in bridging the entire retail industry with this new government that has been recently put in place? Can you walk us through your journey?
Yes. Unfortunately, the new government coming at a timing that they have to face so much of challenges. Again, as I mentioned, being a responsible association representing 30,000 stalls and more than 500 chain members, the biggest names in town, they're all our members. We have to be very responsible and responsive and also active as association to represent not only the rights, but also the country to make sure all of us stay afloat, you see. And we have given representation to the government with our 10-point proposal. And I hope all this, I understand tomorrow, Friday, there'll be another announcement. Hope something good and drastic, not only good, it has to be drastic. Something very bold, something really can solve the problem, or at least alleviate the concern and the woes of so many of the business people, the sector, the SMEs, especially, who consist of 98.5% of the industry in the economy. And that is the most critical, and contribute about 38% of the GDP in Malaysia. Can you imagine if all these are wiped out? It takes probably years again for us to build up the country economy, be in tatters.
Yep. I think this is really a challenging time. So as a retailer, while they are waiting for governments to take on these actions, what can they do right now?
You see, during the MCO, I believe most of the bosses or senior management, we probably have to re-strategize what we need to do, or how can we beef up our company in the various aspects that we can be a much stronger company after the MCOs or the future. For example, it could be changing of refocusing different customer base, or other areas, like for example, more aggressively going to online digital business. Like some of our members, like Sen Heng and even Padini and many others, they have done well using online, even despite the market so depressed. They have, of course, big downturn, but still would not be as bad as 80-90%. They suffer down by 60%, but it's still much better than many other companies. And this is one area. Of course, we need to upskill our workers after the MCO and make them more prepared to face whatever issues on the skill side. And this is very important as well. And whatever cash flow we have, I think very important now, we have to preserve our cash, to conservatively, no matter how little, how much you have, we have to constantly preserve it, because cash is king. Otherwise, very difficult for us and tough for us to survive as well.
Yeah. So if I can just summarize what you said, what you're saying is, at this point of time, retailers have two focus. Number one is to preserve their cash, and number two is to pivot, to recognize that at this point of time, even though you don't like to do Facebook Live, you got to learn how to use Facebook Live, things like that, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so at this point of time, what can we do to access to help and assistance from MRCA?
I think very important. You can of course convey the message, what MRCA is doing for the members as well as for the business and the public. We're doing our best to voice to the authorities and the government to assist us. It's actually an appeal to the government to make sure that the message goes through, that this is something really serious, because it's a one-off game, you see. If we don't do it right this time, the whole economic collapse and everything will just go down the drain. Can you see the unemployments and the NPLs, and of course the banks and Bank Negara, all these have to play a very strong role to ensure the system is in place, you see. Otherwise, everybody will be waiting and see. That was what happening. The couple of weeks back, everybody is waiting to see. What's happening. But every week is a challenge. Every week is increasingly pressuring, because you can see that when you don't have business and you just wait for bigger and bigger wave to come, it's almost impossible. By the time the biggest wave will hit you. So we need to get prepared with all this, as I mentioned just now, the cooperation and support from one another. Every sectors need to put in their efforts. Example, as I say, even the GLCs, they have to high time to cough up some of their reserve or to assist. It's no more KPIs or per se, or profit driven per se. We're talking about survival, staying afloat now. Forget about the KPIs. Forget about the profit driven. It's one off. Let's do the CSR. Let's be magnanimous. Let's be kind to each other and support each other as Malaysians, so that we can prosper in the future. I think that's very important.
Yeah, yeah. I think we are both unlucky and lucky at the same time. Unlucky to be going through at this point of time, but we are lucky because China went through it first. And there's a lot of case studies that we can look into China on the kind of measurements they have made, including what their government has done. So as you are right now the leader of MRCA, you are the bridge between retail chain brands to the government. What would be your top 3 wish lists for the retailers and the government?
Before that, I think it's good we look at China. You see, China have contained, and also Korea, and in a certain extent, Singapore. I think these 3 countries has done pretty well in terms of the experiences on this COVID-19. You look at China, the dynamism and entrepreneurial spirit of the business sector there is enormous. They just want to stay afloat and stay alive. You see, during the downturn, you see what happened? Many of them, they go into areas where there's an emergency need. For example, medical supplies from masks to sanitizers and medical equipment. Some even invested in new machinery, and some moved into this area, at least to buy time, at least for the next 6 to 12 months. And now there's a big surge for the exports from China as well, for these medical supplies. So it's a booming business for them, is it? Can you imagine? So this is to be, from the business perspective, we also need to learn to be very adaptable so that we can survive not only the middle and also medium, longer term, you know. And these are important aspects we can also learn from these experiences.
Yeah, I totally agree on the importance of adapting, especially to this situation. And back to my question, what's your wish list going to be for the government and for retailers?
Of course, as I mentioned just now, the wish list is that the government must give us the strongest support in no uncertain terms to show their leadership. They are for not just retailers, the business sector in particular, the SMEs. Even the big boys will suffer. You look at the SME Corp recent, just initial survey, they talk about 48% of the SMEs cannot even survive more than 1 month if they were to pay all their bills. And 46% can survive 6 to 12 months, you see, or two above to 6 to 12 months, that kind of thing. So you can see only about 6% of them can survive indefinitely or longer term. These are the big boys and established boys. I got calls even from some of our big members. They say, how can we pay salary when we don't have income? Even the big boys are calling me. So can you imagine, what about the smaller SMEs, the smaller retail? I cannot imagine how stressful, how concerned they are to override this. So the government has to really come in to pump in the money. People, you see, when they're distressed, they don't care whether the country has money, no money. The government just have to find the money. And it's their job anyway, because like paying tax is our job. So now, high time the government have to find a way to actually to cushion off the economy. It's for the sake of the country, to save Malaysia, to save the economy. You see?
Yeah. I have one last question for you, Datuk Seri. As you mentioned, at this point of time, adaptation is the key, but we don't want to make decisions where it's too late, because where it's too late is often not the best decision that we can make. So at this point of time, anticipation is the key. So as we anticipate, what is your strategy for your short term, mid term, and long term at this point of time, knowing that we don't know when this will end? So I'd like to hear from you, and this is my last question of the day. What's your short term strategy, mid term strategy, and long term strategy?
Short term, as I mentioned just now, we have to, conserve our cash, even if you have very little. And of course, after that, we have to upskill our staff and see how to look at our customer base. And should we diversify or should we reinforce our business model? Could be like what China is doing. Of course, I think very difficult to foresee the future now, looking at this, because Malaysia is a trading country. And we depend a lot on overseas. And now only China is recovering, but even China alone can't take it because they're also doing trade with other countries. So whatever we export to China also will be impacted by indirectly or directly with other countries as well around the world. So this is something we have to see, and hopefully everyone were to do their part, very important to be responsibly to contain, to break the chain of this virus so that everything can go back to normal. I can guarantee it'll take at least another 6 months or so to build back, at least to maybe another boost will be the next 12 months. Is it? So this will take quite a while. So everybody have to be patient, have to really tighten your belt, have to, and see what you can do best. For example, now we are doing online social media. I think this is one area it still can survive. You see, for example, and this being adaptable. Some people may go into media area and all this, just like you. And I think very important, the key thing is still the government must play their very, very major role. I would say that needs the leadership to drive the whole country, the economy, and give us a confidence so we can support the government in the 100% way. Because we are doing national service, we hope that the government is also supporting us, and we are supporting the government 100% to make sure that we will sail through as a country, as one Malaysia. I think that's very important.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Datuk Seri Garry. If there's few things I learned from you is, at this point of time, the key here is not only to adapt, but also to anticipate. And if I were to summarize this entire 20 minutes that we had, you shared with me 3 very key important lessons. Number 1 is you need to preserve your cash right now. This is the time for you to reduce expenses. All those things that's nice to have, you no longer need it. You got to preserve your cash. Number 2, you got to pivot. You mentioned a lot about your people having to upskill, and you as a business owner as well, you got to upskill. You got to go and do things that you're no longer comfortable. A lot of business owners are telling me they're not comfortable appearing in front of the camera like this at home, but the fact is you got to do it because you just got to pivot. Even in your business as well, you got to pivot. If you're formerly very traditional, everything offline, at this point of time, you got to move online. And the number 3 lesson I've learned from you is you got to plan, because the new norm is going to change. Because as people continue to go through what we are going through right now, a lot of habits will change, a lot of things will change. And as a business owner, every single day you got to plan. So thank you so much, Datuk Seri Garry Chua, and thank you so much, Dato Bruce. It's been a pleasure to speak to both of you. Before I end on both of you, I'd like to hear one of the biggest advice you have for every SME out there. If there's one thing you feel that everyone should hear, what would that be? So I'll go to Dato Bruce first, right? And then I'll go to Dato Seri Garry. Yeah, if there's one thing you feel that every SME should get from this, what would that be?
Thank you very much, Jonathan. You summed it up very, very nicely. And I don't have much to add from what our president of MRCA has already espoused so succinctly. But I'll just say that we are living in extraordinary times. And I'm saying we should draw strength, not just from ourselves and from our people. We should also, right now, like what we are doing, reach out and approach this collectively. And because with this, then our voices are amplified and can be heard. And what we need are good leaders, exemplary leaders who have the gumption to take our fight for our rights and help us all together survive this, because it's extraordinary times. It's no longer just the financial markets, or something. This COVID-19 virus affects every one of us, and it's every one of our responsibility to ensure not only the survival, but the aftermath as well, and the recovery and eventual return to the path of growth. Thank you. Dato Seri Garry.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, I look at this as something very unique, because affecting the world, perhaps it could be a calling to make mankind to be more engaging, more concerned, more caring to not only each other, to also the environment, to have moral values, and also to, we also have to look after each other, and also to be humble, humility, and support each other in not only during the bad times, but also the good times, If everyone can be kind to each other in this world, then we have a better place. Not just about business. It's also about mankind, people. We are all human beings, and we also should live in the environment in the most peaceful manner and take care of the environment. We are taking care of the future as well. Thank you.
So thank you so much. If it's true indeed, crises do mold character. So thank you guys. It's been a pleasure to speak to both of you and learn from you. And I look forward to see you guys again. Bye-bye.